Hello and welcome to another Toll Tickets Tolling in Europe presentation. In our last presentation, we looked at the heavy goods vehicle tolling market across Europe, including the different systems, technologies in place, and the associated revenues and opportunities. This week, because this week marks the official deadline for EU member states to transpose the revised 2019 EETS or Interoperability Directive into national law, we thought we would take a brief look at the status of heavy goods vehicle tolling across borders. So as we looked at in the last presentation, there are many countries that have dedicated schemes in place for heavy goods vehicles. Some use onboard units, be they GNSS, GPS data-based or DSRC based. Some use vignettes, typically digital vignettes. So countries like the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Luxembourg still have a dedicated vignette system in place, but most other countries are using some sort of onboard unit based dedicated scheme now for trucks. Today, however, we're going to look specifically at 8 European countries, Central European countries: Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Germany, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia and Slovenia. Each of these countries has a dedicated scheme in place for heavy goods vehicle tolling, and as you'll see indicated beneath each flag, each scheme. I've decided not to include Switzerland in this analysis, purely because although Switzerland remains very important and is now an EETS applicable country as well, due to the unique characteristics of the country, the topography, and the quite unique nature of the tolling scheme, it doesn't see the same amount of foreign tolling traffic. So I've decided not to include it on that basis. So if we take these 8 countries as a whole, we can see that foreign users, or foreign trucks, should we say, represent more than 70% of all of those registered, and just below 50% of all of the toll revenues collected each year. This disparity is of course because foreign users tend to travel less within each country compared to domestic users who will be traveling more regularly. Such a high prevalence of foreign trucks is not surprising, given the geographical location of many of these countries. We are looking predominantly at Central Europe. Many are very important transit routes from either north to south, east to west. Also, some are relatively small population economically and have therefore much smaller fleets, domestic fleets, compared to the number of trucks that may be coming from neighbouring countries which are much larger. So if we take a more detailed look at Germany, which of course is home to Europe's largest and arguably most influential truck tolling scheme, we can see that the ratio between foreign and domestic users and revenues is much more balanced. On the one hand, Germany is an important transit country with a highly developed highway network, again at the geographical centre of Europe. But on the other hand, it is also Europe's largest economy and largest exporter of goods. In any single year, Germany sees trucks from more than 40 different countries travel across its toll network, which is of course also one of the largest in the world at more than 50,000 kilometers, which is significantly larger than anything else in mainland Europe, shall we say, and roughly equivalent to the scale of the Russian truck tolling network. So next we have Austria, which, depending on the exchange rate against Swiss francs, is either Europe's second or third largest dedicated truck toll when you measure by revenues collected. Here we've had to make some more estimates based on the information we have available, so the proportions are not quite as precise as for the other countries. Nonetheless, it is true to say that Austria has potentially the largest share of foreign trucks to domestic trucks among its registered user base. And these foreign trucks also account for the majority of tolls collected in a normal year. As mentioned earlier, this is largely due to the geographical location of Austria, again, sitting as it does at the center of Europe, but also Austria has a relatively small domestic fleet. There are far fewer road transportation companies, large road transportation companies based in Austria, certainly compared to neighboring countries like Hungary or Poland. And because of this high share, Austria, like Germany, is an extremely important country for EETS providers such as toll tickets. So toll tickets does cover Austria. It's part of our interoperable portfolio, and it was in fact one of the first countries we brought on board because of their importance, because of the importance of the transit routes and tolling in Austria more generally. And so finally we have Hungary, yet another very important transit country, but also one with many large domestic road transportation companies of its own. Therefore, it has a slightly larger domestic fleet and slightly different proportions to its neighbour in the west, in Austria. That said, foreign vehicles do continue to represent approximately 70% of the registered users, registered vehicles, and roughly half of the collected revenues. Hungary was also, many of you will know, the first country in Europe to allow existing telematics units to be used to declare the toll in place of what you see in most other countries, which is a unique tolling device, or certainly a device that has been constructed uniquely for tolling. And as you may have guessed, toll tickets is also able to cover tolling in Hungary and Austria and Germany as part of our single interoperable onboard unit based solution to our partners in the fuel card world, in the telematics world, and indeed any fleet service providers looking to add tolling to their portfolio. So to conclude this presentation, short presentation today, I wanted to come back to this overview once more. If we look at the absolute tolls, or the absolute totals, across these 8 countries, we can see that there are approximately 3.3 million registered trucks across these 8 countries alone. This is not including, of course, the other important countries of France, Italy, Switzerland, as I mentioned, the Scandinavian countries, which also have tolls in place for trucks, albeit not necessarily dedicated schemes, part of all vehicle schemes in places like France and Italy. But if we look at these 8 countries, we see that there are roughly 3.3 million trucks, and they generate more than 5.4 billion euros in tolls, or are accountable for 5.4 billion euros in tolls each year. This is quite a spread. So if we look at the trucks themselves, where they're coming from, and how they apply to the revenues in each country, it's not the case that there is one single country that is responsible for most of this foreign share in another. It is a very diverse mix. There's a very large spread of traffic coming from all directions. It is true to say that some countries, of course, or trucks registered in some countries are responsible for larger shares in some countries. So in Germany, for example, there's a very large number of Polish registered trucks. Polish trucks are the largest single foreign contingent within Germany. That's unsurprising given that Germany shares a border with Poland. Poland is a much larger country than some of the others in terms of population size and number of vehicles, number of transport companies based there. Poland also exports, if that's the right word, a large number of trucks or tolls to other countries like Hungary and Austria, but it's not true to say that they are responsible for the majority of foreign collected tolls in each country. It is very widespread. As I mentioned, in Germany, more than 40 countries, or trucks from more than 40 countries, and the same is the case in other domains as well. And so there we are. I hope the presentation has been useful and provided some helpful insight into the importance of tolling, not just for fleets within their own countries, but within countries surrounding them. As always, it is our belief that tolling plays a vitally important role in delivering a full suite of fleet services to the end customer, be that fuel card issuers, telematics companies, insurance companies. We think tolling fits within that as a very important and useful component to the end user. As always, if you have any questions, comments or queries, just pop us an email, pop me an email on the address you see on the slide, or you can contact me or one of my colleagues through LinkedIn or one of our other social media channels. If you have any thoughts or ideas on future presentations, let me know as well. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the day.